Hi, I'm Rachel Greer, and I am excited to bring this free video to you so that you can learn how ungating works on Amazon, why Amazon ungates the way it does, and how you can get Amazon to work for you. In this short video, I'm going to describe why ungating exists and what it means to Amazon, and what kind of costs you can expect when you actually get to the point where you need to get ungated, and how to reduce your liability and increase your compliance with Amazon policy. So why me? Why am I the one able to tell you this stuff? The critical thing about knowing who to trust in this space is that resumes matter, but knowing your shit is a lot more important. And I have been living and breathing Amazon for the last 10 years, for the majority of my professional life. And I can tell you that it is a very unique company. Certain choices were made because of how Amazon works, and now certain choices are being made because of how those processes did or didn't work. So based on my background in compliance and policy, I am in a unique position to help you understand what Amazon is looking for, not just in the exact step-by-step instructions of what Amazon wants, but what the underlying meaning is of what they want. Health and beauty. Okay, so why is this category gated? Mainly because anything that is ingestible or touches your skin is going to be a concern for Amazon. So grocery is a concern. So if you're selling sports protein drinks, or you're selling healthy protein drinks, or you're just selling protein bars, whether you're selling those in grocery or in health and personal care, you're going to be gated. And you do need to make sure that you have appropriate documentation to show that you have the authorization to sell it. Now, it used to be that you could get ungated with receipts, and now you can't. You have to be buying from a legitimate wholesale supplier. And you might ask why. It was because a lot of sellers were buying in retail packaging and then reselling it onto Amazon, and people were getting items with punctured holes in them. They were damaged, they looked terrible, and that impacts Amazon's reputation. So category ungating for grocery, beauty, and health is partly about the safety of the consumer who's buying it, because those are more risky products, but also about Amazon's reputation. Both jewelry categories are gated, fine jewelry and fashion jewelry. The difference is that the way that the Federal Trade Commission, or the FTC, categorizes fine jewelry makes it to where Amazon has to enforce those regulations around truth in advertising. So the Federal Trade Commission covers things like anti-spam, they cover fiber labeling, they cover a lot of things for consumer protection. So with fashion jewelry, you just need to acknowledge that you'll follow the rules and you're good. With fine jewelry, Amazon actually has a testing program to validate that if you're selling something that's gold or that has pearls in it, that it actually does have gold or pearls in it to protect their consumer population, and also because it protects Amazon. There are a variety of other categories that are not nearly as difficult to get approved in, specifically categories like sports memorabilia or clothing and shoes and luggage. Each one of these has their own requirements, basic requirements, and you just need to be able to provide them from a legitimate vendor. Now we get to subcategories. One of the major subcategories that took people off guard when it was first gated was dietary supplements. This category requires FDA documentation, so specifically a certificate of analysis or a GMP certificate or audit or some sort of registration in the FDA Orange Book. This was because there were many sellers who were importing from abroad or sourcing from potentially suspect places in the United States where they didn't actually know about the compliance of what they were selling. A lot of things were potentially mislabeled, warnings weren't present, ingredients weren't present. There was a lot of problematic content for dietary supplements. And as I mentioned before, Amazon's duty to its customers is to make sure that they are safe with what they buy on Amazon, because that's the right thing to do for the customers. And these sellers, these private labelers, they were legally responsible for the documentation that they provide and for the labeling that they provide, but they weren't doing it. And so Amazon took action to protect their own customers. Topicals in the Amazon context are defined as pretty much anything that touches the skin. We've seen lotions and creams, oils, all these defined as topicals. We've also seen cosmetics defined as topicals, which is interesting because technically cosmetics have a different category under the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA rules that apply to these products. In these cases, the concern is really around bacterial contamination. Your certificate of analysis will cover things like, was the product tested for the presence of E. coli or for other kinds of damaging bacteria that can be part of any sort of liquid preparation like this. So what Amazon is looking for here is proof that it was produced in a safe and clean facility, and that if a customer has, say, an open cut on their face, that they won't then be introducing nasty bacteria right into their bloodstream. You might be tempted to think that just because the most risky items are the ones that exist in gated categories, that there aren't any other kinds of products that have subcategory gating, and that's absolutely not true. So one example is mobility aids. Mobility aids are in health and personal care. They can also be in home, and the product needs to meet basic FDA requirements for a mobility aid. Basically, you don't want to sell someone a cane and then have them start walking on it and have the cane collapse. That would obviously be a significant health risk to the user of that cane. Other kinds of FDA regulated items are also gated at the subcategory level. Another subcategory level ungating process occurs in multiple baby subcategories. In this case, this is kids and baby furniture, so it's a crib. And you can imagine over the years, there have been a lot of crib recalls. Cribs can be very unsafe if produced incorrectly or if designed incorrectly, and they can be some of the only places where a child is left unattended and therefore at risk of injury. In this case, what Amazon is looking for is a children's product certificate. I mentioned certificate of analysis for FDA regulated items. A crib is actually regulated by the CPSC, the Consumer Product Safety Commission, and therefore the certificate that's associated with it is different. The CPSC does mandate requirements for the children's product certificate, covering anything for a person 13 or under, or a general certificate of conformity, which is a certificate that covers a broad variety of products that are regulated by the CPSC. So now we swing away from category and subcategory and go into conditions. There are a broad variety of conditions that you can choose when listing products on Amazon. You can choose new. You can choose a variety of used, such as used like new, used very good, used acceptable. You can also choose refurbished or collectible, although those two are categories that are not permitted for everyone. In this case, I'm giving the example of refurbished in the example of a vacuum cleaner. If you want to apply for this condition type, then you have to prove that you are capable of offering good quality refurbished items. And so you must apply, provide invoices, give information about your business, and then Amazon will choose whether or not to approve you. One area that I didn't go into in detail was brand ungating. For brand ungating, you need a letter of authorization from the manufacturer directly saying that you are qualified to sell. Brands were gated because of consistent counterfeit on the platform, and these are done at the discretion of Amazon based on their understanding of how it will impact customer trust on their platform. That's key for them. So if you do want to get ungated for a brand, it's typically anywhere between $1,500 and $5,000 per brand, and this is to support Amazon's efforts at anti-counterfeiting. Ungating for fine jewelry is $5,000, and that's to support Amazon's efforts in product testing to validate your product is passing FTC regulations. And overall, ungating for most subcategories is $3,000 to support their efforts in validating and making sure that the site is safe. However, ungating for most categories is really free, no money at all, and easy to do. So for example, with clothing, you just need to apply and provide information about the clothing you're going to sell. With fashion jewelry, you just need to acknowledge the requirements and you're in. So there's a lot of categories that are gated for the purpose of making sure that Amazon wants you to explicitly acknowledge the requirements of that category, but that there is no dollar value attached to it or effort in terms of providing invoices or business information. Are you ready? Okay, so to make sure that you're ready to apply, make sure that you have invoices in the format that Amazon expects, which is listed out here for you. And you need to make sure your compliance documentation is in order. Get your CPC, get your GCC, get your COA, and then have a an expert review it before you commit to buy anything, especially if you're doing private label. You may be spending thousands on a product that may not be tested or may not be compliant to sell. Thank you for watching my short video on ungating on Amazon.